Hi, welcome to Jared Invests. Today we are going to be discussing about 10 college majors that are quietly not worth the student loan debt anymore. 23% of all bachelor's degree programs in the United States produce a negative lifetime return on investment. Not break even. Negative. You go into debt, you spend 4 years of your life, and you come out the other side with less earning power over your lifetime than if you had just skipped the degree entirely. Most students picking a major have no idea which programs those are. And look, this video isn't about whether these fields matter. Teaching matters, art matters, social work matters deeply. The question is whether $60,000 to $100,000 in student loans is the right financial tool to access those careers. Because for a lot of them, the honest answer is no. Georgetown's Center on Education and the Workforce tracks lifetime return on investment for hundreds of majors. Their 2025 data hits hard if you know where to look. We're going to run through 10 majors where the financial math is genuinely broken. The unemployment rates, the underemployment rates, the starting salaries, the debt loads, and what actually makes more sense if you care about both the work and your financial future. Here's the test to hold in your head the whole time. If your starting salary is lower than your total student debt, you start your career in the red. You don't just owe money. You owe more than you can realistically pay back in any reasonable time frame without serious sacrifice. Keep that in mind. Let's start with the one that might surprise you most. Early childhood education. Georgetown's 2025 data puts the lifetime ROI for this major at negative 55.43%. That's not a typo. Over a full career, the average early childhood education graduate earns $149,407 less net than a high school graduate who never went to college. They carry $30,000 to $50,000 in debt. They start around $37,000 a year. And the kicker? Many states require this degree just to work in the field. So the credential is mandatory and still financially punishing. The problem isn't the career itself. Childcare in America is chronically underfunded, wages are suppressed, and the degree cost has absolutely nothing to do with what the market will pay you. If you genuinely want to work with young children, community college certifications and associate degrees exist. Some states have specific pathways that cost a fraction of a 4-year private school and get you into the same classrooms. Fine arts, 12.1% unemployment, one of the highest post-graduation rates of any major tracked. But the number that really tells the story is 58.9% underemployment. More than half of fine arts graduates are working jobs that don't require a degree at all. Retail, food service, customer support, carrying $40,000 or more in debt from a degree that didn't place them in the field they trained for. The art world has never been cracked open by a credential. What gets you work as an artist is a portfolio, a network, and relentless output. None of those things require 4 years at a $50,000 a year institution. Some of the most financially successful working artists, illustrators, and designers built their careers through community college fundamentals, YouTube tutorials, and commissions while keeping their expenses low. The credential is not the bottleneck. The debt is. Performing arts. If fine arts sits at 58.9% underemployment, performing arts lands at 63.9%. That is the highest underemployment rate of any major tracked in Georgetown's research. Nearly 2 out of 3 performing arts graduates are not working in their field. For those who do find work as performers, starting salaries run $35,000 to $42,000. In cities like New York and Los Angeles, where rent alone can run $2,000 a month. Less than 5% of people who get a performing arts degree go on to build a sustainable, long-term career as a working performer. Now think about what the path actually looks like. You audition, you work your craft, you build relationships, you get seen. None of that happens in a lecture hall. The conservatory route, a dedicated 2 or 3 year acting or music conservatory program, is often far cheaper and far more respected by industry than a full bachelor's at a liberal arts school. If you're serious about performing, the degree is rarely what opens the door. Psychology. Here's where it gets quietly devastating, because psychology is the most popular major in America. Hundreds of thousands of students graduate with a BA in psychology every year, and a BA in psychology is nearly useless for the one thing most people think they're getting it for: clinical work. To be a therapist, a counselor, a psychologist, you need a master's degree or a PhD. The bachelor's alone gets you nothing in the clinical space. Without licensure in graduate school, psychology BA graduates are starting at $35,000 to $40,000 in jobs that have nothing to do with what they studied. The average debt load is $42,822. And if they do go to graduate school, which is what the career actually requires, that's another $80,000 to $150,000 stacked on top of what they already owe. The degree people are taking out loans for is just a prerequisite for the degree they actually need. That's an expensive prerequisite. If you know you want to work in mental health, the smarter path for a lot of people is a 2-year master's program in counseling or social work after a cheaper undergraduate degree in something more versatile, not 4 expensive years in a psychology program that drops you at the same starting line. Social work. Nearly the same pattern plays out here. A Bachelor of Social Work, a BSW, is often not enough for the roles people actually want. Child welfare, clinical therapy, hospital social work. Almost all of those require a Master of Social Work, the MSW. So you're looking at 4 years plus 2 years. Total debt for the full path, $80,000 to $120,000. Starting salary with the MSW, $45,000 to $55,000. And then you still have state licensing requirements, additional exams, supervised hours, renewal costs. The field is genuinely critical work. Social workers hold together communities that would otherwise collapse. But the financial structure around the career path is punishing in a way that has nothing to do with how much the work matters, and everything to do with how we fund public service in this country. Criminal justice. 65.8% underemployment. Here's what doesn't get said enough. Most criminal justice jobs, corrections officer, police officer, probation officer, dispatcher, require a high school diploma and a post-certification, not a bachelor's degree. You do not need 4 years and $50,000 in debt to become a police officer. Many departments don't even prefer it. What gets you the job is physical fitness, the certification, a clean background, and passing the hiring process. The criminal justice degree often sits on a resume and does nothing. For the small number of federal law enforcement or investigative roles where a degree does matter, FBI, DEA, federal investigator, they're looking for accounting, computer science, or law, not criminal justice. If you want to work in law enforcement, go direct, get the certification, save the money. General liberal arts. Georgetown's lifetime ROI data puts general liberal arts at negative 42.78%. Employers, per LinkedIn data, rank it among the degrees they value least in hiring decisions. And look, the skills you build studying philosophy, writing, history, and critical thinking are genuinely useful. Nobody serious is arguing otherwise. The problem is that generally educated is not a job description, and the market doesn't pay a premium for it. A liberal arts degree from a $70,000 a year private school is a very expensive way to become a generalist. That same intellectual foundation, wide reading, clear writing, analytical thinking, can be built through a community college path, through self-directed study, or through a cheaper state school at a fraction of the cost. The education has value, the price tag on it often doesn't. Communications and journalism jobs are down 26% since 2008. The industry shed tens of thousands of positions across print, TV, and radio, and a lot of those jobs are simply gone. Digital journalism is real, and it matters, but entry-level digital roles pay $35,000 to $50,000, often in cities with high costs of living. Most communications graduates don't end up in journalism at all. They land in marketing, PR, or corporate communications, roles that increasingly hire from any major. A marketing team does not care whether you studied communications or English or business. They care about what you've built, a portfolio, a newsletter, an audience, a campaign you ran. The degree is becoming secondary to the work. If your goal is marketing or content, consider whether a business or marketing degree, with stronger emphasis on analytics and strategy, might get you to the same career with more practical tools in your kit. Sociology and anthropology. 9.4% unemployment, the second highest rate of any major tract, and 72.4% underemployment. Nearly 3 out of 4 graduates work in jobs that don't touch their degree. The issue is structural. The careers that actually draw on sociological or anthropological training almost all require graduate school. Research positions, academic posts, policy roles, they want a master's or a PhD. Without that, the bachelor's functions mostly as a general education credential in a job market that already has plenty of those. If you're drawn to social science, The honest question is whether you're planning on graduate school. If the answer is yes, then the major you choose at the undergraduate level matters far less than what that undergraduate degree costs. Get your foundation cheaply, keep your debt low, and put your real investment into the graduate program that opens the door you actually want. Theology. The average starting salary for a theology degree is $30,725, lowest median starting wage of any bachelor's degree tracked. And here's the context that makes it complicated. Most careers in ministry, pastoral work, or religious education don't require, or specifically benefit from, a four-year theology degree from an accredited university. Denominations have their own training, their own seminaries, their own ordination paths, many of which cost significantly less than a traditional four-year program. The people who end up needing the credential are often the ones pursuing academic theology, which again requires graduate school. For everyone else, the debt-to-income ratio is almost impossible to justify. At $30,725 starting, carrying even a modest $35,000 in student loans means your entire first year's pre-tax income barely covers what you owe. Which brings us back to that test. If your starting salary is lower than your total student loan balance, you start your career behind. Not just in debt, structurally behind, in a way that compounds. The average student debt right now is $37,338. Roll that balance onto a credit card at today's average APR of 24.92%, and you'd owe $9,300 in interest in the first year alone. Student loan interest isn't that high, but the principle is identical. Debt that is large relative to your income does not stay still. It grows, and it shapes every financial decision you make for years. Whether you can afford to move, whether you can take a lower-paying job you actually want, whether you can save, whether you can invest. None of this means these fields are bad. Teaching, social work, the arts, ministry, criminal justice, these are some of the most important things humans do. The argument isn't against the work. The argument is against the specific financial structure of using $60,000 to $100,000 in undergraduate debt as the entry point to careers that don't financially support that load. So what does a smarter path look like? Community college for the first 2 years, $5,000 to $10,000 total instead of $30,000 or $40,000. Trade routes and certification programs for fields where they exist. Picking a more versatile major. Business, computer science, nursing, finance that keeps career options open while you figure out what you actually want. And for the fields that genuinely require advanced degrees, keeping the undergraduate cost as low as possible so the graduate investment actually has room to pay off. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the video.